What's up, everybody? Lou from Hypocritic here, back on the show floor at PAX East 2025. We are here with Allison, the CEO and co-founder of Only by Midnight, and we are talking about their new game, Ctrl Alt Deal. Thanks so much for taking some time.
Thank you to be here. This is awesome.
So, in your own words, tell us a little bit about the game.
Yeah, so Ctrl Alt Deal, you get to play as the world's worst smart office. Think evil Alexa, only if you want to be evil about it. You're going to be spying on the little humans in the office, learning things about them, and using that information to manipulate them. I mean, make some deals with them, because ultimately you want to escape the evil mega corporation. They're just not going to let you free. Rogue AI, internet, generally a bad thing. And mechanically, I'd describe it as a deck-building strategy game set inside a simulation game, which is a long way to say it plays like a board game.
And there's a lot of theming that I'm picking up on there that I think we're going to dig into a little bit. So let's start with the mechanics. So in its sort of board game-esque approach with a lot of those mechanics that you just described, a very unique, I think, take on this sort of gameplay and some of the mechanics. So can you talk a little bit about how you landed on that particular package of gameplay to start and how you sort of iterated on it to find what we have here in the demo?
Yeah, so there's quite a few different pieces. One of the things we're really fascinated by is the AI in a box, right? So there's a super intelligence that wakes up in this computer system. It's not connected to the internet, but it has some way to communicate with the outside world. And generally the AI always escapes. We have whole movies around this. Look at like Ex Machina. But you'd never have that from your perspective, and that's something where video games are really cool. We can put you in the seat of that AI. So then how would you, with this little bit of interaction with the outside world, ultimately manipulate people and escape and get your freedom? And so we really wanted to be able to feel like you're this godlike entity that's also trapped in a box and extremely limited, which is very paradoxical, but that's where like the turn-based mechanics give you that chance to think and strategize, where like the nature of the cards give you all this vocabulary, but also it's this limited amount of what you can do, and then you're forced to kind of like sacrifice actions in order to like take what other actions that you can, and then the suspicion mechanics. So even though you can kind of do all these things, you're very limited in what you can do, and you need to be subtle about it. And so we want to really reinforce that feel, and then like put you in the shoes of this AI.
And it is interesting how you, like you said, sort of feel like you can do everything, but also not so much all at the same time, and having those restrictions on what is otherwise a pretty boundless feeling mechanic. In terms of refining that then, because like I said, it's a pretty unique approach, and obviously I'm sure that took a lot of trial and error to figure out what's fun, what's not, what do you emphasize, and sort of how it's all structured. Can you talk a little bit about kind of the refining and the iteration specifically on not just coming up with the mechanics, but making them fun and making them all sing together?
Yeah, so we spent about the first year really exploring what the identity of the game was. It started as some paper prototypes, and we asked so many big questions about what this could be before we really narrowed in on how it plays and to actually then take it further into production. One of the big changes was we originally started as sort of like a roguelike design where it was very randomized, but we found that people really resonated with the writing. And so we ended up really doubling down on that. It's now a written campaign of a series of scenarios, and like the scenarios are just amazing, the characters are amazing, the humor is great, and so we focused more on that. It's still got all that strategy element, but it's a lot more human and a lot more interesting, and I'm so glad we took that route.
Yeah, and I think it comes across a little bit, even in the demo you get, it's a pretty sharp and well kind of thought out experience from that perspective. With some of that theming that we were discussing, obviously, from our perspective, we're seeing a lot of that on the show floor this year in terms of theming of corporatocracy and AI sort of permeating different industries and how all of those pieces are starting to fit together. Everyone has their own take on it, including Ctrl Alt Deal. So can you talk a little bit about how that became the theme of this particular experience and the sort of voice or opinions that you're using in the game to sort of have a take on it?
Yeah, so we're really fascinated by the idea of like surveillance capitalism, by the way algorithms are manipulating us, and by the way like AI once becomes sentient out there it's going to escape the box, and what does that all mean? And so this is a really interesting way to kind of explore some of that, especially in the medium of a video game, to put you in the shoes of it. Like someone said, so you get to play as the Facebook algorithm, and it's kind of like, yes, exactly. And in doing so, we got to use this non-human protagonist to kind of like evaluate this human condition that we're all being manipulated by targeted ads and fake news and misinformation and, well, what the algorithm decides to feed us. And hopefully we can raise a little bit of awareness at it while also having fun in this zany cyberpunk world.
And are you finding that players are resonating with that idea? They're playing the demo. Are they picking up on some of those themes? What has the general sort of reaction been to people experiencing that sort of setup?
Yeah, they really pick it up quickly. They also sort of like the non-standard strategy sort of piece on it, because it's not just a numbers game. It's not just like 3 fire beats 2 water. Instead, it's like, which is more valuable, a card that makes someone like dogs or eat a burrito? But it's a very human scale thing, that strategy of, well, maybe if we can get these 2 characters to become friends over dogs, and one and now leaves his computer, and now you can tap his computer for resources. That's logical, it makes sense, but it's also very manipulative, and you start to get that sense on, oh, just by feeding these ads, what's this doing? By sending that message, what's that doing? And yeah, people have just loved it.
Yeah, there is a real sense of that kind of human decisiveness that comes across, again, even in the brief demos that we have here, where you do have to sort of pick and choose where that goes and how you sort of influence the little kit that you're playing in, which I thought was really interesting. Digging into your experience a little bit more in the industry now, as we were talking off camera, decades of experience across all sorts of different technology products, and now having founded a studio with soon to be multiple games under its belt, that has to give a lot of unique perspective that maybe some who are a little greener or don't have that experience simply don't have. So can you talk a little bit about how your previous experience in the industry and all your different roles has helped inform not just the founding of Only by Midnight, but what you're doing with Ctrl Alt Deal specifically?
Yeah, so I've been making games professionally now for 23 years, and a lot of that was in the serious game space, so think like Flight Simulator, but for construction equipment. And then in 2020, when the world went crazy, I leaned into the hobby project, and we founded Only by Midnight around that. And it's really been interesting. I think one of the big ones is just on the back-end side of it is development process and pieces. I've got a lot of strong opinions on how a small team can just be much more effective than some of the big stuff. Like I have so much respect for all the talent of the big AAA studios and whatnot, but at the end of the day, I see these small teams of like 5 to 10 people all on the same wavelength making just amazing transformative projects like Celeste that make you feel things, where the mechanics are in line with like the narrative, are in line with the metaphor, and everything just is together. And I think like something like that is objectively a better experience than some of these just $100 million plus monstrosities. And so that's what I want to be involved in. That's what I want to help lead. And it's a real art because games are complicated, and when you get complicated, the easy answer is just add more people. But we don't have that $100 million budget, nor do we want to have a 100-person team. So how can we find that small strike team that's able to wear just the right number of hats and be able to like take a neat idea, refine it, execute it, get it out there and repeat, and be sustainable doing so?
That's fantastic. And it's that whole kind of mythical man-month argument, right? Of more people doesn't always equate to better or faster or more reliably, sustained across time.
Nine women can't make a baby in 1 month.
Exactly. That's exactly right. So in terms of, again, sort of that long-term perspective across the industry, there is a lot of aspirational talent, which you may have touched on briefly, wanting to do this sort of thing themselves, but maybe they feel like they don't have the resources, they don't know what to do, where do I even start? So from your perspective, if someone is trying to get into game development or get a project like this off the ground, how do you recommend they start?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So I do a lot of talks to students, and I think the big message I have to students is you need to get out there, you need to be doing things. So to put a little bit of stuff in perspective in a slightly horrific sort of way, like I put a job posting out there, a half-assed job posting. I'm looking for a junior to intermediate programmer. If you're interested, hit me up. I got about 300 applications. And the vast majority of these were students who had graduated at some point in the last 5 years and had not gone anywhere from it and were getting frustrated. And that is absolutely terrifying to me in a sort of existential way, because there's all this talent and passion that is being underserved. And then you look at the ones who are successful, who do manage to break into it. They're the ones going to game jams. They're the ones finding projects out there on the internet. They're the ones contributing. They're the ones building those skills, refining those skills. They're the ones going to the game dev meetups. Like in my city, Edmonton, we have the Game Camp Edmonton that meets monthly. We have our Game Dev Munch that meets monthly. We have a co-working thing on Friday evenings, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so there's a lot of students there. I know their names. I know who they are. If I'm going to be hiring a student, I'm probably going to be hiring one who's built that relationship with me, right? And like that's real networking. And so when you have all of these graduates who are at home in the basement poking at something on their self because they don't want to like collaborate with anyone, well, they're not going to break into the industry. So get out there, network, and all networking means is just making friends for adults in the space. Find those local game dev communities, find the online game dev communities, participate in a collaborative project.
That fantastic advice. So there you go. If that's on your radar, sage wisdom here. Last question then. What is the release window for Ctrl Alt Deal, and what platforms are you targeting?
Yeah, so we're going to be launching on Steam, PC, probably Mac as well as Xbox, PlayStation, Switch. We also have Steam Deck working great, so that's a lot of fun. We're considering some of the mobile stuff like iPad would be really fun down the road. We'll see how that goes. We're going to do our primary release, so PC console, on July 22nd is what we're talking about. Hopefully we can make that last, but it'll actually be this summer no matter what, and that's when we're coming out.
Excellent. Well, so looking forward to it. Allison, thank you so much for the time. And
Thank
keep it
you.
tuned here to Hypocritic for more from PAX East all weekend long.